it's Maria from Jardin Le Papier doing a quick flip through of this art journal or wine tasting journal called Bordeaux. It's 7 wide by 11 tall. The spine is 1.5 inches, and they're permanently just using some photo corners and gluing them on the cover so that you can remove the postcard as needed. On the inside, I've left very simple. It's just some vintage French grain sack, and you can actually use this greeting card or the postcard as your front pocket. So the book for now is laying pretty flat, or it's closing pretty flat because I intended it to be an art journal. This is an authentic document. I think it's like a stock document. Bordeaux is a color, it's a place, it's a drink. How to make Bordeaux, the color, 3 parts bright red, some dark blue, and a little dab of yellow. Bordeaux, the color, was used a lot by by royalty, military, and this app actually is Joan of Arc. It's intended to be a very vintage looking, rustic art journal filled with lots of some khadi paper and then some vintage sketch paper that I have in this very old ledger from England. So you'll notice a lot of vintage, really soft British ledger. I used a lot of Raindrop Lila's digital, her roses, just because they reminded me of the color Bordeaux section. It's an old Q-Tex color. This is a French magazine. Bordeaux was used in newsprint. I think this one is Finnish or German. I haven't gone through and translated it yet. Actually, the Opera Messalina at Bordeaux. You'll notice some of the paper is actually the Archer's watercolor paper, so it made for a very thick binding. To reinforce using some thicker paper, and I made the mistake of using watercolor paper to reinforce some of the pages. So if you find any stiff pages, just go ahead and press down on the journal. It won't hurt the spine at all, because again, it's backed by mold. So there's a couple of postcards in here, and a map of Bordeaux. Again, southwest of France. Happens to be a watercolor of Bordeaux plus pay. And then here's an actual postcard. So all the Bordeaux postcards come from Sarah at Crafty Paper Bits. Some ledger paper. What I did was I cobbled together all of these different sketchbook papers just to keep them nice and tall. Bordeaux, I mentioned, is also a wine. So this is actually a greeting card I made using fabric bits back in 2003, and believe it or not, I called it a Cabernet Sauvignon. From Raindrop Lila, and they're beautiful because they're actually very close to the actual grape colors before they're made into wine. So the primary grapes I've attached here. I won't bore everybody. I know I do too long of videos with all the history, but basically the reds are the primary that come from Bordeaux. Cabernet Sauvignon is a grape and a wine. And this is actually, Cabernet Sauvignon is typically called a black grape, so it has a very dark complexion, a Merlot grape. So here are all of your wine geeky details. I'll include the maps, which calls out what wines Bordeaux is known for, like their Merlot, their Cab Sauvignon, Cab Franc. because I can't resist the wine history of Bordeaux. I do have one page here with some antique French script and a couple of pictures from the growers. It's not focusing. It's a little blurry. The sepia is beautiful. And then of course here you have your growers or your pickers who might be part of the same family. And this is a swatch that I was working on this morning of the swirl. It's not quite as deep as the Cab Sauvignon that we get here in Washington. Is watercolor paper, so it tends to want to stick up, but go ahead and just press down again. Oh, I love these little envelopes from Raindrop Lila, the same kit that I used to represent the grapes. And they're little baby manila folders. Heavy duty Strathmore watercolor paper. I always kind of regret putting these in because they are so stiff. But I think it'll be worth it, especially if you do some watercolor painting here. Pieces from the vintage ledger book where you see the patina colored sketch papers like this one. Pierre-Joseph Rodoté. It's called a Burgundy Cabbage Rose, but the title is The 100 Leaves of Bordeaux. Same rose kit. I love how when I tore them, they look like Polaroids. More Arches watercolor here. And then the same kit from Raindrop Lila, but I printed it to a very antique ledger paper, and it kind of gave it a nice sepia tone to her images, contrast to the black and white that looks like Polaroid. If you need lines for your journaling, I'll go ahead and include a couple pages or snippets of some vintage ledger paper for you and some old labels just to use throughout the journal. Or just some extra scrap sketch papers that I didn't want to leave out, just because if you're like me, I want to doodle and write and everything. So it's, again, more Strathmore, but they were slightly imperfect, but I didn't want to leave them out. Oh, this is actually an old vintage Cranes resume paper. It has a nice patina and stain to it. And then the back is just the old pen paper from the vintage ledgers that I was using. And then that's it. So that might be my shortest flip through ever. I know I'm trying to keep them short for you all, but thanks for joining me. I will have this on Etsy once you see the video.